Hey, it's Chris Duker for geeknerdnet.com. I am super excited to be joined by Kevin Boyd. Kevin is the Director of Comics Guest Relations for FAN EXPO HQ. They run, is it 17 shows across North America, Kevin?
16. No,
16.
17. There is another one yet.
17. All right. All right. So 17 shows, a total behemoth of convention unit, and you're involved in all of them. I've obviously gotten to know you over the years, and I'm very happy to call you my friend as well. So always fun to have a friend on the show. Great. I really appreciate you taking time. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Actually, I'm not involved on all of them. There's one that I don't do, which is VidCon in Anaheim. They don't have me
Oh,
do comics. That's our
okay.
only show without comics.
Wow.
Yeah.
And also, you are, or you still are, correct me if I'm wrong, please. I apologize, but I know we've talked about it before. You're the co-founder and director of the Shuster Awards, correct? Is that the right
The
title?
Joe Shuster Awards.
Joe Shuster
Yes.
Awards. Sorry, that's yeah. Thank you.
So yes, I was a co-founder of the awards in 2004, and I'm still technically director, but it's kind of on hiatus at the moment.
Okay.
So my current project and on the side of with everything else I do is just making sure that the website is up to date in all the different areas. So
Yeah. I
because
mean,
it's a good resource.
for sure. And you know what? Given and for those that don't know, the Joe Shuster Awards are the award show for Canadian comics industry people in the business, writers, artists, publishers, and what have you. Everyone
Mhm.
connected in there, and hopefully one day we see bring it back again. No pressure because you have again 16 shows to take care of through the
Oh,
year, and I've seen you go, but yeah,
it definitely is something that I want to get back to doing again, but it's the problem with 16 shows a year is that I have no time. So
yeah. Oh my God.
now sort of downtime while I'm booking the guests for next year that I have. I want a distraction, so that's why I'm doing the update. But
Nice.
it's a very involved process to do the awards, and I just and a lot of the team that worked with me moved out to different places, so I just don't
Gotcha.
have a current team that I work with. So
For sure.
mhm.
Nice. Well, let's jump right into it. I don't think I've even asked you your very long foundation in history, with conventions and shows. The Fan Expo shows were originally owned by a Canadian whose name escapes me. You'll tell me in a second. But then they were
Mhm.
bought by Informa Events out of the UK. Is that correct? So
Yeah.
just give a little history on how you got involved and then to where you are now.
Well, I mean, obviously, longtime comic fan. I grew up reading comics. I learned to read from comics. So I started reading comics in the early 1970s. Grabbed my brother's comics and was hooked. And so like there's pictures of me 3 or 4 years old with my Batman and Spider-Man Mego figures, and certainly loved those. Were part of my daily digest of television shows with Batman, Spider-Man, The Adventures of Superman, Justice League, Super Friends, all that stuff. Fantastic Four. And then as I grew up as a fan, reading comics through the whole 80s explosion, black and white boom, all that stuff. I was right in there. Comic shops became part of our lives. I started setting up as a vendor in the early 90s at local shows, selling parts of my collection that I didn't want, as well as I did my own comic with some friends in high school. So we used to do local cons. I used to go to my dad's office and photocopy comics and staple them and put them together. It was Blacklight Comics was our company, and I did a book called The Cat. It was about a reincarnated Celtic warrior who wears a spawn-like cat outfit. So
That is
anyway, it was
cool.
fun thing to do. And then, but as I transitioned towards selling, I hooked up with a local shop here in Toronto, started traveling to shows across North America, going to places like Chicago, New York, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, places like that to do shows with him in the vendors area. So I met a lot of professionals along the way. And we kept sort of comparing what was going on with our big local show and these other shows in the States. And as longtime fans, we wanted to see more veteran creators. So
Yeah.
the legends of the industry, right? So that led us to create the Paradise Comics Toronto Comic Con in 2003, which I worked on for 5 years. Basically, first one was 2003, but we started working in 2002 on it. In 2007, I left after 5 years, and it was a lot of work. And I was basically a volunteer because there was no money in it. So it was, it's you can put in your 10,000 hours, but at some point you do have to pay your bills. So,
Yeah.
so that's what I did there, and then, and I got an offer from Aman Gupta, who's the head of Hobby Star Marketing, who created the show that became Fan Expo, was the Canadian Comic Book Expo, Canadian Anime Expo, Sci-Fi Expo. Those shows all merged. They were all the same show, but they had different component names. They
Yeah.
all became Fan Expo in 2005, Fan Expo Canada.
Yeah.
And then, so I was around when they did their first expansion into Vancouver and Regina in the early 2000s or
Mhm.
2010s. I helped get Stan Lee to Fan Expo Canada for the first time in 2008, I believe,
Very cool.
because I had tried to get him to Paradise and it didn't work out. But then I had the connection and I started working with him, and it worked out. Um, so I did that for 5 years. Then I opened a comic store in 2012
Yeah.
because one of our local big stores in Toronto, Dragon Lady Comics, was closing. The owner was retiring and moving away. And so some other friends of mine who had a business in that area, one was a printer and the other was doing a comics school, said, "Hey, like we should keep that store alive and move it into our space." And they said, "Yeah." I said, "This is how you could do it." And they said, "Why don't you do it?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want to do it." Anyway, they talked me into it, and it was a fun few years that we did that. But the lease was up, and my like the one thing they don't tell you about running a comic store is that it is your life. So
Yeah.
like you have no life otherwise.
Right.
You're every week it's the new comics are in. You got to deal with your pulled files, and I loved it, but it also was very difficult to have a full-time job because all these years I've also been in medical research. So I was
Okay.
a database coordinator.
Yeah.
So it just get to the point where I had like absolutely zero time, and while it was good to throw myself into work for personal reasons, I couldn't do it. So
Yeah.
so the store shut down in 2015. I did online orders for a while and then merged the accounts with another friend of mine who did an online store.
Yeah.
And at that point, the guy that I used to work with, so I left Fan Expo in 2012 when I opened the
Okay.
store.
Yeah.
And the guy that I used to work with was let go. Um, and I won't say much about that anyway, but
Sure.
they called me in and said, "Could you help advise us?" And I said, "Sure, no problem. I'm there as an exhibitor anyway,
Hmm.
with my store." So and then they said, "Could you come back?" And so we had a
Yeah.
few meetings. And so in 2015, I returned to be, so my 2007 to 2012 stint, I was the Canadian comic guest coordinator.
Yeah.
So when I came back, I became director of comic relations to handle all comic guests and advise on comic related matters, programming and stuff. So
Very cool.
yeah, and I've been doing that now 10 years. Oh my God, 10 years.
10 years. This is 10.
Like
Right.
that.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. No, you know what? I love that history. I love sharing the reality of owning a comic shop, right? Like I think
Mhm.
every nerd, even like myself, comic nerd, or just lover of sci-fi and everything connected in that world of
Mhm.
pulp culture and comics is like, I've even through the years like, man, would you like to run a comic shop? No, I just want to go and buy the comics.
Yeah. I mean, it
But
was fun. And I
yeah.
loved the space that I had was more like an event space than a comic
Hmm.
store.
Yeah.
So while we sold comics, we did art shows, book launches, 24-hour comic day. There were comic classes and lessons going on with Ty Templeton School. So it was a fun time to do it.
Hmm.
It's just some of my partners in the space left and others came in, and then they had different priorities. And ultimately, it would have been my name on the lease in 2015 had I renewed it,
Right.
and I would have been like last man standing. And
Ah,
while the store could have maintained itself, that's like it would have been like doubling my costs. So I
mhm,
just said, you know what, I'm gonna. I mean, my partner passed away. She passed away in 2014, and so while I did enjoy trying to put that in the back of my head by working, I just
yeah,
eventually reached the point where it's like I have to deal with stuff. So deal
yeah,
with
for
personal
sure.
stuff.
For
Yep.
sure. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I can't, I have a bunch of friends who run some comic shops here in Calgary, and then a couple in Edmonton. And
Mhm.
I can't even imagine now, I like talking to them and seeing the way they're having to navigate just
Oh.
not only shipping and the way things have changed via Diamond going bust and someone else buying them, but then also
Mhm.
now you add in we won't get too much into this, but the reality is you add in tariffs and you add in costs coming across the border, or even the
Mhm.
other way if they can't sell stuff down to the States anymore for customers that want them because they're not making any, they're losing money by even trying
Yeah.
to do it, right? So
Yep.
the headaches of well, don't get me wrong, all these friends that I have that run these shops are great, and they work their butts off, as you know, because you've done it,
Mhm.
and you see it too because you have friends there that own shops. But I can't even imagine the stress, and let alone the added stress now of everything. The uncertainty, I guess, would be a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I used to complain about what I called the making the donuts element of it. I don't know if you remember the Dunkin' Donuts commercial where the guy got up at like five, gotta make the donuts.
yeah,
Yeah, it's 5 a.m., gotta get ready. That was like driving out at like 4 in the morning to the airport to pick up the boxes that shipped in from Diamond, to drive them back, to take them, sort them, do the files, get it all ready, and then go to work after. So that was a lot. But to take that and I mean, at that point, there was one master to serve. You served
yeah,
Diamond Comics, and that was it. And now everything's fractured.
hmm,
Diamond is, I don't know what's going on with Diamond now. They barely exist. And nearly every other major publisher has shifted over to Lunar or Penguin Random House.
yeah,
And I know there's a good Canadian distributor called Universal out of Montreal that handles all the accounts, but still, you know, comics and comic graphic novels and books are supposed to be tariff exempt, but that doesn't mean you don't have to pay it and then try to get it back.
yeah,
So that's a giant pain. And you're right, to where we could go to eBay or other ways to sell across the border. Um, when you ship stuff down now, they for a while there was, talk about the tariffs, right? So Americans pay the tariffs to buy foreign goods, but then they turned around and the shipping companies have changed it so that if you are shipping to the States, you have to pay the tariff for the person.
yeah,
So rather than make them paying for it. So they were kind of sneaky in that regard. So I'm like, I would never sell to the States then if that was the case. It's not worth it.
yeah,
So I'm now limited to Canadian market, which is not saying there aren't buyers in Canada. There are quite a few, and we still have a pretty thriving comic community of buyers and fans, but um, that's a pain. And I mean, we see it ourselves too because um, Fan Expo's warehouse is in Canada. So now we've
mm,
got to look at opening an American warehouse. So
wow,
to try to do tariffs back and forth of merchandise for events it's not worth it. It's like better to open something on the right side of the border where things are received there instead of bring them to here to sort and then ship down again.
totally.
So that's, yeah,
And yeah,
reality.
the business of it is just you explain that's a massive impact. It's
Yeah. And I don't want to get into too much of the political stuff, but
mm,
how long is this going to last? Right.
yeah,
So
yeah,
like it's right now it's a year of year one of Trump two.
yeah,
Um, but he's got 3 more years to go. But what happens 3 years from now? Are we going back? Do we cancel all that and go back to the way it was? Or
yeah,
does his successor, whoever that is, decide to keep some of those policies and then we're stuck
yeah,
dealing with that. So it's a pain. And as
yeah.
a collector who buys things like Hot Toys and stuff like that,
Right.
they slap on a tariff fee on top of the shipping. So
Right.
and the exchange rate is already horrendous as it is. So I just don't.
Totally.
I'm,
You
I'm
got to
cutting that.
you really pick and choose now, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
or I wait until I'm down in the States.
Fair.
for an
Yeah.
event and then buy it there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You know what? I want to talk about that. I'll lead into, you're saying when you're back in the States, for example, you'll be back in the States next week for the fourth
Yes.
annual Fan Expo
Yeah.
San Francisco. And talk about that show and some of the highlights of guests
Well,
you've got going there.
it's a fun show. I mean, all my work is done mostly here. So booking the guests, organizing them, getting their panel programming ready. So it's kind of a vacation for me to go down there to go and over. I'm just basically there to answer any questions and make sure everyone's okay.
Yeah.
So I have a good team that I bring in who work the show for me. So well, they work for the show for Fan Expo because I'm a
Right.
consultant. I'm not an employee direct. So yeah, so there's that fun and so um San Francisco launched after the pandemic. I want to
Yeah.
say
2022.
22, yeah.
Yep.
So now this is the the fourth one, I guess, right? If you can
Yep.
every year. So
Yep.
it's grown steadily. It's on Thanksgiving weekend, so that does limit some things.
Hmm.
But we've had some great guests there over the years, like Hayden Christensen and Mark Hamill, and this year it's like Gillian Anderson and a few other people. So we do bring in quite a few celebrities to that show.
Hmm.
Um, and I love San Francisco because there's a great comic scene there in the Bay Area, with people like Arthur Adams nearby.
Yeah.
So it's great to see him. And then we'll bring in guests. It is interesting that a lot of Canadians and Europeans come because they don't have
Yeah.
the Thanksgiving commitments that
Right.
Americans tend to have. And being on Thanksgiving weekend, we see less people traveling from far away distances and focuses more on local people, local fans who
Yeah.
just support that. So I do think that if the show wants to move to the next level to get bigger, then it would be better served on a different weekend. But the politics of convention centers is this doesn't always you don't always get the rooms that you want. So and the space
Sure
that
enough.
you need. Right?
Yeah. In fact, I remember that show 2022. Excuse me. I went down there that year as like for Geek Nerd Net. I took vacation, went on my own as time, and that's actually where you and I first met face to face.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'll never forget this. We were talking. It was the Saturday afternoon, and you said, "Hey, what are you doing right now?" And I said, I'm probably just going to go talk to so and so in a few minutes. Oh, can you help me over the sketch duel? Can you do that? And I said, sure. When is it? You're like 5 minutes. And then I said, okay. And then I leaned back to you and I said, so what's a sketch duel?
Yeah.
Because I've been at all the shows I've done. I've been just doing interviews, so I'd never had time to go to the panels. But then, yeah, and then as we both know, it snowballed from there, and then being involved with you in a bunch of different shows has been a ton of fun. And San Francisco, hope
I'm
to get
gonna
back to.
I'm gonna
Uh,
miss you next week, of course.
oh,
So I
thanks,
wish you were
man.
coming this year because I still do have some sketch tools that I don't have a moderator for, so I'm working on that. So
Nice. Well, I hope you find someone, and I would love to come back. Hopefully next year.
someone else will be tagged, "Hey, what are you doing right now?"
Yeah,
And then they'll
pretty
become the
much.
next.
You
Yeah.
know what it works, right? But we've got about 9 minutes in our
Okay.
time. I apologize for the truncated timeline, Kevin.
No worries.
Um, one question I wanted to ask you, and you and I have
Mhm.
talked about this personally before. Comics had a massive impact on me. My mom gave me two comics because I failed grade one, and they literally taught me to read and write, and
Mhm.
how to comprehend stories. And of course, she sent me off on a path of a DC comic and a Marvel comic, like Superman
Mm.
and Spider-Man, um, and uh,
Yeah.
and then the rest is history. Like that's my origin story of getting into comics, and then now fast forward this in my life, I'm a writer and I've written some comic stories and
Mhm.
all that good stuff. So that's the impact it's had on me in a very lifelong way, in a great way, and I'm so happy. Like I've got friends like yourself and many others in the industry too. Um, what has there been? I know you had mentioned earlier in our chat today that comics taught you to read, and I'm sure
Mhm.
a lot of kids too, right? And um, uh, has comics in your life, or has there been a comic or a series, or maybe even a creator that has impacted you, where you go, you know what, this was like to be like a Doctor Who. This was a fixed moment in time for me in terms of
Mhm.
comics, and I'll never forget this, or this did this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of any examples that I could give you of specific creators. I think the first creator I met who made a real impact on me and their work made, I mean, obviously Marvel and DC were part of my life growing up. But to me, the Bible is Amazing Spider-Man 1 to 38 and Amazing Fantasy 15. Those are perfect. Like I was trying to count how many different versions of that collection, those books do I have? And it's like seven, I think it's seven of everything and maybe 11 AF-15s and Spider-Man ones and different collections and books I have.
Wow.
Um, so meeting Stan Lee was obviously a big deal for
Yeah.
me. Um, I never met Steve Ditko, and I did meet John Romita, who was great.
Wow.
But the creator that made the most impact on me as a young person was Matt Wagner.
Nice.
Now, I remember when Mage number one came out, and I was aware of Grendel. But Mage number one was a book I loved, and that would have been like 83, 84. And he embarked on a mage tour the following year, and did a bunch of comic shop visits. And
Oh,
so I
cool.
remember going to the Silver Snail Comics on Queen Street, and he was a guest there, and he was great. He was like just like not what you would have expected a comic creator to be like. Although I'm like 14, 15 years old, I don't know what a comic creator is supposed to be like, right? So he was giving away stuff. I still have the mobile, which is Mage and Evangeline on the other side that he gave to everybody. And then
Nice.
the Mage Tour poster, and then just listening to him talk about comics, it was like hypnotic for an afternoon. And
Very
I got
cool.
in trouble because I was late getting home for dinner after because it
No,
was because I went to it was downtown and it was on a weeknight. And so I left from school where I was going to high school and took the subway down, and then I had to subway back home. So it was like my mother was freaking out. It's like, why aren't you home? It's like 8 o'clock and you've missed dinner. And I'm like,
yeah,
I had no idea. The time just went away from me. So
yeah.
that was one example of a creator that affected me a lot because obviously I followed Matt's work to this day, right? So
Mhm.
um I wish he'd return my emails again, but no, sorry. But no, it's I joke. I joke. But he's definitely was an influence. And then, meeting people like Darwin Cook over the years.
Yeah,
Darwin, as a person, had a tremendous impact on me. And I love his work, of course.
yeah.
And he was just a juggernaut in the Canadian scene for 5 or 6 years. So
Amazing.
yeah, well,
So
close to
amazing.
10, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah. Wow,
so
that's great.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
I love that story too. Of course, there are times I'm with you. I'd be at my local comic shop, uh, Comic Connection on Kerr Street in Oakville, and
Mm,
uh, and yeah, I'd ride my bike home across halfway across, little Oakville at the time, and
hmm
I was like, "Where were you?" I'm like, "I was getting comics. This
hmm
is your fault."
uh,
um, for listen, we're definitely going to have to, please, let's continue our conversation because we're
sure, sure.
hitting tip
Yep.
of the iceberg, but I'd love to do a part two. I know you're very busy with San Francisco next week, Fan Expo San Francisco to be correct, and
hmm
then in the new year you've got New Orleans MegaCon, Fan Expo Vancouver, and then Calgary Expo to start the year. Is that correct?
No,
I did,
I could do them all in order.
but did I
New
not do them in
Orleans,
order?
New
Damn it!
Orleans, January 9th to 11th. Portland, January
Oh,
16th to
Portland.
18th.
Yeah.
Vancouver, February 14th to 16th. Cleveland, which is, I don't know, it's like the week before MegaCon, so second week of March. MegaCon is 19th to 22nd in Orlando. Toronto Comic Con, the same week, March 20 to 22nd. So they're trying to kill me with these double weekends. So I'll be in Florida most likely, and I'll be online for the people in Toronto to communicate with me. Then April, at the end of April, we've got Calgary Expo.
Yeah.
Then in May, we have Denver and Philly on the same weekend
Cool.
at the end of May. So there's another weekend where trying to kill me. Um, VidCon's in June. I don't go to VidCon. That's in Anaheim. Then August, it's Boston, Chicago, Toronto. So I think it's the 9th for 9th of August for Boston, 16th of August for Chicago, and then like the 27th for Canada,
Wow.
27th to 30. Then 2 weeks later, it's Dallas, September
Hmm.
11th to
Yeah.
13th. Week after that is Edmonton, the mighty Edmonton,
Yeah.
which I think is the 18th to the 20th. And then we're back in San Francisco, Thanksgiving 2026.
Amazing.
That's my year.
Amazing. Well,
So, yeah.
apologies to Portland, Cleveland, and Toronto Comic Con for myself missing those on the opening of the list. I'm glad,
Right.
but that
No,
list is incredible. What a man. What a year. I'm
it's a
it'll be
lot.
fun. And next year, yeah, like you said, next week. Sorry, not next year. Next week will be. It's always a blast in San Francisco. Um,
Mhm.
Hey, so for those that may not know or may want to reach you on, say, Instagram or what have you, how can they find you on the online social channels?
So
If you want them to find you.
I'm on Facebook as Kevin Andrew Boyd,
Hmm.
and you got to befriend me to see my posts. And then on Instagram, I believe I'm Kev the Mev 77.
Okay.
So KEVTHEMEV 77. And I canceled X or Twitter. I don't have that
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
I only have them as placeholders now myself on that.
I'm sure I have Threads and Blue Sky, but I don't do anything on those.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Well,
yeah, so
that's awesome.
um,
I'll link
yeah,
all those too. I'll do as you've seen before. I do a write up of our conversation, and then there's also going to be obviously this whole video component. But Kevin Boyd, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate you taking time.
thank you very much for having me, Chris.
Okay.